obscure Genshin Impact facts. I guarantee at least one of these will be new to you, and if you happen to know all of them, I suggest touching some grass. This fireplace in our village chief's house can't be distinguished. While most open flames in the game, like ovens and campfires, can be put out, this particular fire, albeit very similar looking, is immune to any attempts at extinguishing it. It's important to note that this fireplace does not burn your character, nor can you score pyro near it using animal. Although cosmetic fires are nothing groundbreaking, as we can see this with Serenity Pot decors, however, this flame being in the normal world is rather confusing. Speaking of Serenity Pot, among the tracks that you can select in the Euphonium Unbound decor, the latest tracks, such as the current ones for Fontaine, tend to be named after their spin crystal, but this is going to be changed later, presumably after these tracks are released with their official titles. This was the case for the Sumeru tracks. I know this for sure as I uploaded the track Maidens of Sanctity back in version 3.6 when it was named Radiant Spin Crystal 95, and when I checked back on it in version 4.0, the track's name's been changed to what it is now. One thing I find interesting about Genshin is how almost every chair in this game can be sat on. Like Nuvolat's and Farina seats, which would be impossible to reach without certain characters, and also whatever this is. I just find this really funny. Emphasis on almost, because while tree logs, rocks, and cliff edges can be sitting locations, others belong on the list of not suitable for placing near your bottom. That list would include chairs. In The Cat's Tale, all chairs can be occupied by NPCs or be used by the player. The latter does not apply to the chairs in these side rooms, however. Even though you can see NPCs sit on them, once they leave, no matter how hard you try, the prompt for sitting won't pop up. The only thing you can do is sit on the couch, looking at these absolute anomalies and asking to yourself, what the heck are Teva's laws and why can't I sit on a literal chair? Here's a quick one for my fellow TCG players. All NPCs in TCG duels will always start with their leftmost card, no matter the deck. The only exception is Marv, who opens the game with his middle card instead. If you happen to spend far too much time staring at the character menu screen, you've probably noticed that there are a few set poses for the character talent menu. These include crossing their arms, one hand on the hip, two hands on the hip, a thinking pose, putting one hand forward, hand on the chest, shy/flustered, and a shrug. Each pose can vary slightly from model types to model types, but the idea is the same. And in case anyone asks, I have compiled everything into this neat little table here. There are a few things I want to point out. First is the staggering amount of medium female characters, which is understandable considering the typical demographic of gacha games. Also, this is the only group that has a character in every single category, with this particular pose being present only on 2 characters. The most used poses are on the left half of this table, with the majority of tall characters in the thinking pose and medium characters with 2 hands on their hip. One final thing of note is the tall characters category's complete absence of anyone with 2 hands on their hip. I'm sure one day this table will be full and hopefully Hoyo will finally make a small male model. This animation of Catherine is Lyra exclusive. This animation normally triggers when you bump into NPCs, and in Catherine's case in Mondstadt Inazuma Sumerian Fontaine, she's always blocked behind the counter, paired with invisible barriers, so no matter which character you use, you can't reach her. But in Lyra, we can actually jump onto the counter and get much closer to her. And if you were to maneuver a bit, you can trigger this animation. Pretty neat, but I'd like to say I do not condone kicking Catherine in the face in any way. For longtime players, collecting crystal cores is as much of a routine as logging into the game. Another thing you might wonder is why crystal cores look like that, since crystal flies look like elemental particles with wings. But upon closer inspection, you will see that their bodies are the crystal cores. I want you to think for a second. What does this mean? Does it imply that we're all snatching the crystal flies, pulling their wings from their bodies as they scream in agony, then melting them into some condensed resin just to get some defense-percent artifacts? Maybe. Or, if you want to sleep well, try to think as we catch these things, their wings simply dissolve into the air like elemental particles. Did that make it any better? You tell me. Now, I know we all love Timmy's birds. I mean, who would turn down a free KFC meal, am I right? Sorry, not sorry, Timmy. And unsurprisingly, no matter which nation you go to, all birds can be hunted for some delicious drumsticks. While there are certain animals in the game that you cannot slay, such as cats, dogs, and kitsunes, birds definitely do not belong on such a list. Or do they? There is this golden finch in the chasm that's a little special, because this little one is immortal. It simply does not die, even if you were to drop a meteor on it.
Order guide.
And if you try to burn it, the only one that's going to get hurt is you.
I don't understand.
I admit I deserved that one. Let's not tell Baiju about this little birdie, shall we? For some, you may or may not have known about the infamous rolling Baron Bunny. Basically, if you drop Baron Bunny on the crafting bench properly, it can lead to a very hilarious scenario of an endlessly rolling plushie. But that's not what I wanted to tell you. You see, Baron Bunny can be pushed around and interacted with before exploding. Same can be said for summons like Guoba and Yugui. However, if you were to try and throw them onto the crafting bench, Yugui would simply merge with it and can't actually sit on top. But putting Zhongli's pillar down and then throw Yugui would make it seem like Yugui can sit on the crafting bench. I do not know whether this is a skill issue, but due to difficulty in aiming, I have never been able to have this little machine rabbit to sit on the bench without Zhongli's pillar. Wandering around Sumeru's forest at night is certainly a calming experience, as long as you can get past the tears-inducing BGM. Walking around in the Matiyama forest at night is certainly one of those experiences. And if you ever looked down, you'd see these particles as you walk. Now, I'm not a lore expert, so I don't know if there's an explanation for this, but these do remind me of similar particles you get when walking under Nahida's burst. And that has been 10 details of Genshin Impact that I thought was interesting and not many have known about. This is my first time making a video like this, so I hope you found it interesting and that you've learned something new. If you did, a like would be much appreciated. Thank you so much for watching, and bye bye!